I call the transportation tax relief evaluation. I do not know what task force I'm at. Okay, to order at 8:32 a.m. First, does anybody have any comments on the draft minutes from January 8th? Okay, do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
Okay, second. All in favor?
Yes.
Okay, minutes approved. Okay, the chair report, I reported, attended the chair's breakfast yesterday and just simply told us where we were in terms of the survey was completed. We've done some initial analysis to kind of see where we are. And the only comment from other folks that was relevant and Rich kind of chime in was that the Concord Housing Production Plan wouldn't be complete till the end of the year. So we're not going to get any better information than we have right now from the Housing Production Plan. So that just means we go with what we've got.
Sure.
Okay, so I first of all apologize. Everything has been coming in late. That's because people are working really hard and probably have a lot of other things to do in their lives. So we kind of where we are is where we are. I think it might be useful, and I'm gonna just make the executive decision to go through what John and I put together. We looked at the survey. I did a lot of work in terms of creating an Excel spreadsheet with a lot of calculated fields to kind of see first pass, where are we? And then we can go through all the other reports. It just, this might help frame, you know, some of the conclusions about, is this tool effective and efficient? And I'm going to say before we begin, this is only based on the survey and it makes the assumption that everyone got the RTE, which is wrong. But it's just survey results. It doesn't take into account.
We'll get to that caveat and where that one makes.
Okay, so anyway, so let's, I will share John's slides and we can, you know, I can put the caveats in. They're probably not really important for sharing.
I'm not sure I used any of the data that made that leveraged that assumption, Ellen.
Don't say, hold on, you don't remember.
So I apologize, this came in late.
No,
and
totally.
I was able to print it out, but I haven't gone through it.
I did not expect that.
I found it
I'm
just as
sorry.
I was picking up my snow shovel.
No, so understand that this, oops, that's the wrong one, that this is just meant to be, here's,
Kick off some discussion.
Mhm.
oh man, of course now. I gotta pull it up from the email, my apologies, I thought I had pulled it already. So this is just meant, so here's some things to think about.
You need to share screen and
I am.
indicate, but you need to indicate which window you want it to.
Thank you. Let's share screen. Let's share this.
There you
There
go.
we go.
All right.
Make it full.
Thank you, Ellen. Yeah, I think as Ellen highlighted, importantly, this is draft analysis where there's more work that we're gonna do on the results of the survey. And this, what we have here is more the financial analysis. There's all sorts of information around different opinions around, you know, what do people think about different tax approaches and so on. So
Are they likely to move?
exactly, we have not gotten into this. This is mostly dollars and so on.
Okay.
So, a handful of questions, if you look at the second slide, after the title, the slide after the title sheet. What we're trying to answer a handful of things. One is quickly, some of these things we already know, but I want to put them in here for completeness. How does Concord segment between homeowners and renters, as well as our key target audiences? Are the homeowners we're trying to benefiting, right? So are the low income people and so on that we're trying to benefiting? Are homeowners that we're not trying to target benefiting, right? So are people who are not housing cost constrained or lower income benefiting from the RTE, and how substantial is that? Where does the funding for the RTE come from?
Mhm.
And what is the potential impact on renters? Okay, a few comments on the survey that I actually was really happy to see when they came in. The composition of the survey it's not completely representative, but it's pretty darn good. It's off that where it's off isn't surprising. We're skewed towards lower income segments. I don't mind
Who
that.
were motivated to
Exactly.
respond. Right?
Exactly. So it's not so skewed that it worries me. we received about
43.
43 renter, renter responses, which is, underrepresented in terms of the percentage of the overall population that they represent. It's not 26%. But it's sufficient for the purposes of this analysis.
And given that they don't receive the RTE, it's not surprising they wouldn't respond to a survey about the
Exactly.
RTE.
So when
Exactly.
you look at the percentage, it's like Lexington got about 10% of homeowners to respond. We got 15, yay us.
Yeah,
The renters were 2%.
yeah.
And so just keep it in mind, but the 43 is sufficient to make observations about the pool of renters.
Agreed. And I will also say, something else that gave me comfort is that at a high level, the findings here are consistent with what we've seen in the housing production plan,
Mhm.
right? So if you're looking at one example, housing cost constraint rates among homeowners versus renters,
Okay.
we're within a few percent, which I was so relieved by.
Mhm.
It's great when those things line up. So I think Ellen did too, felt pretty good looking at the data that came through. So, turning the slide, as I mentioned, we segmented residents into primary homeowners and rental units. So on the
By
left,
primary, you mean homeowners for whom this is their primary residence?
yes.
No, we didn't know that. Don't say that.
No, these are
just
people who
homeowners.
applied, no, these are people who applied, and, these are people who,
No, I didn't announce it. This is every homeowner in town. We.
you're right, sorry, every homeowner, yes,
It did not include the subtlety of did they get the RTE, did they apply? So this is everyone, homeowners versus renters, but
Right.
it's still really great, I think.
but just, it highlights,
Exactly.
if you're resident in Concord, these are residents, right? It's all residents of Concord.
Right.
Do you rent or own? Right, that's what it says on the left-hand side. And then if you rent or own, what is your income or housing cost constraint? That's what the charts to the right.
So there are three different graphs in this
Exactly.
first slide. The
Start-
first one is from the HPP, is that
Yes,
correct?
exactly. And
That
that's
would be good. Yeah, please clarify that. That's great.
the first one is from the housing production plan. 74% of people own, or 74% of units are owned, 26% are rented. The next chart over is from the survey.
Right.
What this survey shows on the left-hand side is that roughly 72% or 70%, 72% of rental units have an average household income below $150,000. That compares with Concord as a whole, this is survey data, that compares with Concord as a whole of 38% being below $150,000. So what you can see is that as we know, but this puts more numbers to it, renters tend to be lower income. Looking at this on a housing, yes,
Question,
yes.
what determined the 150K
Sure.
division?
Arbitrary. I looked at, I mean, and this is something that I really would like the team to weigh in. It's
Yeah.
pretty simple. It's a
Yeah.
big Excel spreadsheet. I can change it. So I said, okay, the housing production plan had the median income is 212,000 household. This is 2020 though.
Right,
And so I said 150.
Yeah.
We have different cut points. One is 150. So if you look at the survey, I don't remember what the next cut point is, but the problem is that we did this by ranges.
That's right.
Remember.
that's true.
Mhm.
So what are you thinking?
Well, I'm just not sure, and I
Yeah.
think we need to justify it in the write-up. It's
Absolutely. And we need to possibly do sensitivity
I was
analysis.
gonna
because
say,
the
we can
next
show,
range up would be 150 to 200, is that
Yeah,
right?
so I don't remember honestly, but if we did that and then, you know, it would show something different. It would show higher coverage. And I'm gonna say, the real driver, in my humble opinion, of all this is houses between $1 million and the break even.
yeah,
That is
you'll see it,
half of the houses in town.
yeah.
I mean, the
But right now, we're just talking income, right?
Yeah.
Right,
we
but I'm
can-
saying it really has to do with the income composition of that segment. I
Yeah.
think in my,
Mhm.
you know, we
You'll-
can talk
you'll
about
see.
it later, but I think that's important.
So we can show the 150,000 in a couple. different
Right, we can
levels.
do that
Yeah.
later.
The last one that we have here on the far right looks at housing cost constraints among rental units versus those who own, right?
And it's
And this
not
is generally
it's
consist-
homeowners, okay, just so you know.
Oh, yeah. Yes, you're right, yeah.
Okay.
This is, this again is data from the survey, but I think you'll see that it's actually pretty consistent again with the housing production
Yeah.
plan. Rental units, 53% non-housing cost constraint, 47% housing cost constraint. I think the HPP was 50-50, right?
Okay,
Primary homeowners, 70% non-housing cost constraint, 30% housing cost constraint. I forget,
again,
it was
per survey results.
for survey results.
Exactly,
The housing
yeah.
production plan had that 30% at something around 26 or 27 is my recollection. So again, it lines up, and again, because we're skewed lower in our survey responses, you'd expect that 30% to be higher than what we saw in the housing production plan.
Right, and so this is more, I mean, what I was really thrilled about when I began to look at the surveys and John and I began to talk. This is actually decent representation of the overall homeowners and renters in town, which I'd say, given that, you know, we had to really beat the bushes to get renters. And I think we did a great communication with the postcard and a lot of other stuff. So I'd say that this is good. We've got some good base data that we can continue to mine.
Right, and again, which is consistent with other data that we've seen out there, which is great. I want to pause on the housing cost constraint number for a moment.
That's good.
Yeah, because I think housing cost constraint might be a very useful metric when you're looking at income levels that are relatively lower, like
So
100.
this is self-reported by gradation.
Yes,
right?
how much do you pay annually for your
Is-
housing costs? Yes, it's also
So we
paid.
calculated it.
Yes,
This
we
is not the
calculated it.
self-declared.
It's not, no,
Okay.
this is the
Okay.
this is pure math, not opinion, pure math based upon what they said, okay?
I took that, by the way.
And using 30%, right?
Yes,
Right.
using
So-
30%.
So let me just pick up, it was what they reported as their rent or their total housing cost.
Right.
Divided by a midpoint of their income range.
Yeah.
And so it's lots of assumptions and lots of possible errors, but it came out decent.
Yeah, yeah, and it came out decent, and again, the numbers are generally lining up. Here's the issue with using housing cost constraint from my perspective, and I think Ellen's as well. And I actually have some secondary that highlights this issue as well. When you start talking about how a 30% housing cost constraint at income levels of, say, $1 million, right? It starts to break down, right? Because you still have a lot of money left over after you spend your 30% on housing.
Mhm.
So that's why we began to get a little bit uncomfortable with housing cost constraint. We then went and started looking at secondary data to see if there's anything out there on this point, and there absolutely is. There's a study measuring housing affordability, assessing the 30% of income standard, which was done in 2018, and it basically highlights a different approach it's called a residual income approach, because of the challenges with the housing cost constraints, because of the issue I just highlighted. So what they do is basically say, here are your core dollar things required to eat, to do whatever. Let's look at that from that perspective. I don't want to get into the residual income approach, but what I think it highlights is that we can't lean too heavily on housing cost constraint, which is why I think Ellen wisely brought in the income cutoff as well. Okay,
So
so
we could do housing cost constraint, but we would have to make another executive decision of like, by income, what is housing cost constraint percentage? And I don't think we found any basis
yeah, it is.
for figuring out that it's maybe 60% when you earn more than 400,000. It's just like, I don't even know.
And I also don't think we need to, because I think we're seeing a picture, okay?
Can I just ask?
Yep.
The third graph is using 30% based on the midpoint of the
Yes,
range
Yes.
reported by the survey respondent.
Right.
exactly.
Right, so
exactly. It's imperfect
Yeah,
again.
Yeah, no, but
Mhm.
Okay,
this is not going to be a perfect.
Not
yeah,
at all.
exactly. So, I mean, flipping the slide, to slide 4. So this is looking at owned unit residents. And again, I gotta work on the terminologies to clean this up. I wanted to get the data out.
Mhm.
What you can see on the left-hand side, right? So these are people who are segmented into people who are lower income versus higher income. 95% of people who own and live in their
Can you
house
flip the
are lower
screen?
income.
It's not
What?
on the Zoom.
Can you move?
Oh.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Sorry.
I apologize. I was too busy looking.
Thank you, sorry.
Wait a minute. There we go.
Just-
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Kathy.
On the left-hand side, what you see is that 95% of lower income people benefit from the RTE, those who own their house, own and reside in their house, okay? 5% do not, right? So there are some people whose reported to us income is less than $150,000 that do have houses over the break even.
Right.
But it's not a large percentage, and in that sense, I'd say it seems that the RTE is fairly effective in hitting lower income people who own their houses.
I would say it is very effective,
Yeah,
but okay.
Yeah, definitely. I agree, yeah. On the other hand, on the right-hand side, you start seeing who benefits and who is hurt by the
Meaning
RTE.
this or meaning this, when you say.
Right-hand chart. On the right-hand chart, you see people who are benefit or are hurt by the RTE.
And I just, when you say hurt by RTE, that means that their home's above the break even.
Exactly.
Simple as that.
I know why we use the word hurt, because we're doing this fast right
Yeah.
now and we want short little words, but I
Yeah.
would suggest that as we go forward, we need to find more neutral language.
Yeah.
I think it might be
Pay
the,
higher tax bill,
exactly,
pay
that's what I was
lower.
gonna say, tax increase.
I think I
tax
said
decrease.
beneficiary, I wrote beneficiaries, I suppose we can't say beneficiaries. Beneficiaries of RTE by income level among primary homeowners. Maybe beneficiaries,
yeah.
we can work on
Maybe
that.
it's, so the green is their taxes are reduced,
Sorry, I don't.
the yellow is their taxes are increased, and
Yeah.
just, it's a really simple math that says, you know, above or below the break even, because everybody above the break even if they got the RTE, taxes are increased.
Exactly. So for 55%, more than half of those benefiting from the RTE, this is on a units basis, are above $150,000.
Again,
Their income is above.
so
above
we can change
150,000.
this and make this 200,
Yeah.
you know, but it's kind of like, think about some charts we've seen before, 89% of people are below the break even, you know, just common sense,
Yeah.
89% of people in Concord are not low income,
Yeah.
however you define it. So that's the problem, and it's the distribution of the housing, was Lynn, you brought up so many times. That is the challenge with using the RTE.
Because remember what the break even is. It's the average of qualifying residential property values. That's all it is.
Mhm.
And in my draft, I took the single family home valuations from the assessor's database and I tried to show how skewed the distribution is. So we do have, you know, these high value properties that then pull the break even up as high as it is.
And in that, yeah, okay, yeah. So, I mean, that's the challenge, and that all the numbers are reflecting that simple
Yeah.
fact,
Yeah.
that simple distribution of house values,
Yep, exactly.
right?
Exactly. So in that sense, because more than half of those benefiting are not our target audience, it's not particularly efficient. The RT is not particularly efficient. We're giving a lot of money to people who we're not trying to target.
So let me just rephrase it in another way. The RTE is really effective at reaching the target audience, number one. Then the question is it acceptable that it is not efficient? I think you
Yeah.
just say it is not efficient. And I think that's a discussion that we need to present really clearly to the select board. We can play with what is high income, what is low income.
What's
but
the area median income?
This-
Is that
I don't
Shane,
know, Rich, do you know that?
off the top of my head? I think.
About
Well, he's good at this stuff.
on the order of 120,000 for about.
But that's broader than Concord.
Yeah, it's broader than
Concord.
Middlesex, yeah.
I just know the median income that was 2020 was 212 last time, but I
Oh,
would think,
that's the town, not the
Yeah,
area.
what is a select board? I mean, this is something that I'm gonna ask the select board, because we've been
Yeah,
told to
right.
target lower income people. How do you define lower income?
good question.
You know what, we have not defined it,
Yeah.
and we would look to sort of the affordable housing and the sort of what we use for the median income. I don't, we haven't really
I
talked about
get
it.
it. I have a table that from some stuff that housing trustees.
Yeah, they've done a lot of that.
So I think that we need, basically, I think it'd be
Yeah.
great if we synced in to the
We
definition
should.
of
Yeah.
target income, target
Yes.
beneficiaries across all of our programs, because
Yes.
I just arbitrarily said
Of course,
150.
of course.
No, but I meant, it's not bad.
Yeah,
It's decent.
yeah, yeah,
And so
yeah.
I think that if
Yeah.
we're gonna try to say this is representing all of Concord's efforts to help low income, to help targeted people, to help people stay in town, we should sink in with the other
In
definitions.
the workforce housing, I mean, it's not just the affordable, the 80%, but we
Right.
also reference for the workforce
Okay,
housing, and
that's
those
the-
are all different percentages.
Okay, so that sounds like it's a good action item.
Mhm.
And this, by the way, just when we talk about this again, this is talking about owners, residents who are owners, not and qualified.
Can I ask
No,
about the
not
right,
qualified, not qualified. Everybody, John. I did the analysis.
can I ask about that column?
Mhm.
What is
Which
that
column?
showing us? The
What do you
right
picture?
Heard by
column
RT,
on
who's
the
funding
right
it?
side.
92% of those people of units that are funding it are higher income. Okay, so
Okay.
we're taking the money from the right people,
But
we're
remember,
just giving it,
but they're
We're
not,
robbing the rich, but we're giving some of it to the rich.
more than half of it to the rich.
Okay,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna say, just having looked at a lot of detail in this, again, we should focus not on above the break even. It's not a lot of money from there. It's between $1 million and the break even, and I think we
Yeah,
really need
exactly.
to drill down with who are they? And, you know, do we quote unquote think it's fair that they are getting a benefit, that they're paying more? It's the same group, the 1 million to break even, that are both getting the benefit and paying. I don't understand it, but that's what
what do
we're
you mean
seeing.
getting the benefit and paying?
They're getting the benefit in the sense of the 68% that are higher income on the left-hand side.
Mhm.
That is, a lot of that is 1 million to break even.
Yeah,
So
you'll see that on the next slide, actually.
we have not really delved down, and so I think there's a lot of verbiage about, is this fair? Does this make sense? That needs to, this is just really rough.
Yeah,
But also, let's remember that the people on the higher end above the break even are just a small share of all who are paying for the RTA. Right?
yeah,
Right,
exactly. Yeah, we'll come to that as well.
Yeah,
We'll come to that as well. Okay. The next slide just tries to look at it more on a dollar basis, okay? From an efficiency perspective, and this is what Ellen was highlighting a minute ago. On the chart on the left,
Oh, there we go, there we go.
okay? If you look at the two top bars, 45% and 16%, okay? Those are houses, the 45% are houses valued between 1 and 1.49 million. 45% of them
There
are
you go.
valued there.
There,
okay?
that's what I'm trying to say.
And then from 1.5 to 2.4 million, you get another 16%. So 61% of the dollar value of the benefit of the RTE is going to houses valued above 1 million. If you look on the right-hand side, what we've done is then look at income levels based upon house value,
Mm.
right? And what you see is that once you start getting into these areas of 1 million plus, then you start getting, not surprisingly, a much higher portion of people that are higher income. As a result, because 60% of the value is going to houses valued above 1 million, right? That's why we have this inefficiency.
Yeah.
And it's true on a units basis, and it's, I believe, more true, although we'll finalize it on a dollar basis.
Is it fair to try to interpolate between the 1.5 to 199 and the 2 to 299?
Wait,
And
is it-
assume, I'm looking on the right-hand side. I love this graph.
And what are the ones who, okay, say again?
So what I'm looking for is a differentiation at the break-even point. And obviously, the survey didn't
Yeah, I did.
define home values that way. But given the trends we're seeing, I think it's fair to interpolate and say 2.4 would have us somewhere
yeah.
between those two
I get
middle
that.
columns.
I think
Yeah,
it's very
and-
fair, very
Yeah,
fair.
I just use two because.
Of course,
we-
because that's what the
I mean,
survey.
if we'd ask people, is your house worth 2.1441, they go, what?
I think
But-
that is very fair.
But I think it's fair to say
Exactly.
about 85 or whatever the right number is, 85% of people at the break-even point have incomes higher than 150.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly.
Yeah,
So-
and that's the sort of thing I think that would be really useful. And by the way, it also, once we get there, one of the things that we have in mind at all is the verbatims.
Mhm.
And that we can cut that any number of ways to say, you know, and did people apply? What did they think about it? Are they moving out of town? Lots of things
Yeah.
like that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right?
Okay, so again, this is who benefited from the RTE, all of whom would need to be homeowners. In terms of who paid for the RTE, and this is the point you were making earlier, if we turn to slide 6, only about 10%, I think it's 11% actually, of the RTE funding is coming from homes above the break even. That's the bar on the very bottom, the bottom green bar on that chart on the left, which shows the source of funds for the RTE. Non-qualifying parcels fund 80%.
Where'd you get that?
If you add the 50 and the 31.
Okay, again, all right, this is not, RTE is not in this, just so you know. It's simply survey results. But
Yeah,
anyway, keep talking.
Yeah, but
Oh, so this is not assessor data.
No. this
no,
is
this is survey,
survey.
yeah.
So in other words, it's not, RTE is not included in here, but just keep going, because directionally, this is exactly what we need to talk about.
Well, yeah, the issue is that 300,000 is coming from people above the break even, the vast majority is coming from non-qualifying homes. I think that's a fair statement to make.
And also that apartments, or at least apartment complexes, are not a big share either.
No.
So some of the misconceptions was apartments are paying for everything, which isn't right.
Mhm.
Or we knew that the, above the break even wasn't paying for tons, but it's sort of
Vacant
like,
land's not.
it's that, it's the, you know, the red and the yellow and whether, whatever that color is. We need to figure those big boxes.
But haven't
out.
we asked that from the assessor?
Yes, but we're.
We've
we're
got
gonna
it,
do that.
but honestly, to bring it back, you know, it is incredibly complicated to try to figure out how to combine this.
But I think one thing that we were able to do though, Ellen, was we looked at the non-qualifying parcels and then started trying to peel apart. Who's in
Exactly,
that,
we did.
right? So we
Yeah.
have landlords, right? That's it, they're in there. We have homes purchased within the last year, right?
Yeah,
Roughly
yeah.
200. And by the
Yeah,
way,
and this.
and those homes purchased in the last year would be roughly representative of, you know, it's all income ranges, obviously. Second residences, so you live in Vermont as a primary residence because you want to pay taxes here, driving around with a Vermont license plate. You know, and there may be some others as well.
Rich, you wanna talk about the housing authority numbers, cause they're not in here? The house, didn't you say 140 were?
Well, I mean, we were worried, that was a different question, which is, why are there so many rental units? Because we
Oh,
don't
okay,
have that
but-
many in the. big
Yeah, okay,
rental
that's in the
complex.
1800.
And the answer is, it includes Newbury Court, it includes Concord Park, it includes all of the housing authority, none of which are in there. And those three alone are 400 to 500 on their own. And we confirmed that Newbury Court, the Concord Park Assisted Living would be counted in the HPP.
So the other thing in terms of like others are what was called quote unquote complex legal structures.
Yeah,
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Rich, you're not done.
Yeah, no, well, no, this is a different question on this one.
Yeah.
What about the people who didn't apply? I mean, they may
Exactly.
well have qualified. We know from the,
they're not in here. They wouldn't be in here, either people who didn't apply.
And we
well,
do,
but
But qualified.
aren't they a subset of what you call
Qualifying, yeah.
non-qualifying?
Yeah,
But if
because
you-
they didn't apply, they're not qualifying. Had they applied, they would have qualified. I think that's the,
Right,
at the most
because we
basic
know
level.
from the qualitative, that there are people out there
That's
who
right.
were
Didn't apply.
eligible, and didn't apply.
I think that's
So-
right. I also think when we met with Meredith, one of the things we were asking was how many more applications are coming in?
she
And
said we'd reach, remember
Basically
when, maybe you
saturation.
got 4,000 and you had some comments from the assessors board?
No, that's what, going way back when they created the program, somebody had done some due diligence to try to dig in.
Yeah.
I don't.
So, I mean, I think
and that's what Meredith's seeing in real life.
She
Meredith's
is
seeing that in real
seeing
life.
that the people who qualify and want to apply.
Yeah.
Have, so what's also in the others is LLC, which is kind of considered a complex, and we've got data that will let us parse that out, it will be a couple hundred maybe.
Yeah, we've got to peel it apart and we're still, as Ellen highlights, we've got the raw data. There's a lot of stuff to work through. So we're doing some, I should say, Ellen has been doing some great analysis on it. One, this is a directional number, but we were starting to try to put some dollars to say, all right, how much is going to the landlords? Right, using the different data sets we have. Directionally, it's in that 800,000 to $1 million range, and I owe Ellen cookies.
Of the two.
Yes, he told me half the rent, the half they would be from apartments, I said, no way, and I said, right.
And remind me
Back
again, the
cookies.
transfer amount is something like 2.9 million,
Yes.
Say that again?
the transfer.
Oh, yeah, so,
The
I mean, one of the.
So the
things
total
that-
dollars is more like three.
Non-qualified. It's 2.9.
The total, not
The total.
From non-qualifying, yes.
And
So
another 300,000 from the high. end.
No.
Yes, exactly.
I'm talking about the transfer from those who benefit
Yeah.
to
Right.
everybody else.
So it's like 3.2 million
Yeah, exactly.
3.2.
is the benefit,
Yeah.
and then 2.93 is who pays, and we're,
From
John and
the non-qualifying.
I trying to parse that out, and I think we can get a bottoms up pretty decent, and I think that's a really important
It is.
piece of information for the select board.
I agree.
Who pays is really
Mhm.
important,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So our,
It's also important for the public.
Absolutely, no, I'm
Yeah,
saying
everyone, yeah.
select board / public.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
this, I think this will be surprising to people
Mhm.
that only $300,000 of the RTE is being funded by people above the break even
Yeah,
In the program.
in the program,
Right.
whereas, not,
2.9.
yeah, 2.9 is coming from the non-RTE qualifying, about 800 to $1 million, which is probably landlords, right? And again, we'll work on that. 800,000 to $1 million, that was your math on,
assessors, value,
yeah,
okay.
no,
so-
that's the value of the transfer, Ellen, that's,
No.
Okay, well,
But
we can.
anyway, so just to kind of sorry, it's just like there's a hot button for me. It's really not apartments. It's again, people between,
Rentals.
it's
Or
one, it's
landlords.
homeowners between $1 million and break even who are
That's not
paying.
what this bullet says.
This is renters, we're
Talking
talking
about the
renters.
last bullet on the right side, estimates of the impact of the RTA on landlords.
Yeah, that's what that
That's
is.
wrong.
Ellen, that's your number.
No, it's not. I just, I said that was the value. That's the assessment. The
Yeah, I know,
value,
but the result of it, you use 750,000, the result, we can come back. All right, we'll come back to this. The point is,
I think we
We-
should just flag that as.
yeah. that's-
Yeah, we can
number
come to that.
We need to work. on.
yeah, exactly.
But,
The bottom line is this. Non-qualifying units are paying the vast majority of the RTE.
Right.
Landlords are a meaningful portion of that. We're gonna work on trying to figure out how much of that is going to landlords.
Okay.
Okay?
and so to think about in terms of apartment complexes, the dollar amount increase per year is, around 200. And if it's a condo that's worth 750 or $1 million, it's more like 600. So it's a question of a couple of hundred, is it being, not that that's small. It hurts renters and then it's a question of how much the landlord pass on. I think we need to interview landlords. We haven't
Yes.
done that.
By the way, it was one of my lists, because it wasn't on, it hasn't
Yeah.
been done yet, right?
So I think that was a really important, and we've got.
And by landlords, do we mean John's parents, quote unquote, or management
Yeah,
companies of the
so
large?
can we get Boynton, can we get Di Giovanni, and can somebody lean on them and say, we need to talk to you?
What are we gonna ask them?
Are you, in the past, when taxes have gone up, how much do you pass through?
I think one of the.
And
things-
that could be in context of the market condition.
Yeah.
So,
We could do that, so we could definitely
Yeah.
do that research. I would say that there are studies out there that highlight that it is passed through.
Yeah, but I wanna know how much, and,
You're not gonna get a percent on, well, yeah,
well, no,
if they're able to say, I-
all,
No, but
all of
ask
it,
them
some
to
of it.
talk in confidence and
Totally,
confidentially,
totally.
Yeah.
right? And then I guess the other point was the multi-family.
Yeah.
Homes, and I don't know how many there were. I'm-
So, I mean, I
but-
think.
But just another. data
Yeah,
point.
we know, and I know personally, these 3 people who rent homes and could ask them, did you pass through? On my street.
Mhm.
And then Stephen Bader is a good example of someone to interview as well. He owns a.
I wonder how many landlords would admit that, to your point, right?
Confidentially.
Confidential and-
No, I know,
You're
you
doing-
confidentially, I feel bad.
Yeah, I know.
I know.
Yeah, I passed along the tax increase, anyways, okay,
This first bullet on the right
Yes.
doesn't make sense to me. Non-qualifying parcels fund 80%.
yes,
That part I get, with 50% of the funding coming from those below the break even?
yes,
What does that mean?
below a non-RTE qualifying unit, below
Again,
2.4 million.
Oh,
okay, so again, the qualifying, take out all the qualifying because this is survey results. It's got nothing to do with the assessors. I haven't pulled that in yet, but that's okay. It just,
all right, so I suggest,
Ellen, this is, all right, well, we'll come back to it. Why
We'll
don't
come
you and I need to work on it, because
excellent.
I think I'm letting us explore that. All right, so.
Yeah.
We can do we'll do the landlord discussions. This is some data that I found in the
Okay.
public domain that talks about the fact that tax increases generally impact renters. There's a study here,
Okay.
top one, can landlords really pass along higher property taxes to tenants? That highlights that they are
it
typically,
depends on the market. If the
Sure.
market is tight,
yeah,
they can probably pass everything on
Yeah.
if people really want to get into Concord.
Yep.
And if they can't rent their properties, they probably don't pass everything on there.
I guess-
Keep their rents affordable.
yeah, my point is, if taxes go up, real world evidence says rents goes up.
Okay, and so I would just
And
add
I'd
in,
also say, if you look at the quotes from the Brookline News and Boston Real Estate Times, a proposed tax hike prompted out of significant rent increases for residents, leading to calls for protections to prevent displacement. A large property tax hike on multifamily dwellings was expected to cause sharp rent increases impacting affordability for many. I mean,
okay,
there's
let me.
very
let me just-
little question that.
Okay, all right.
The
This
tax
is-
increase
this
gonna
is
create-
Depends on the
This is
market.
John's core, objection and point of view that since the summer.
Yeah.
Remember, we knew this before we started.
It does, yeah, we knew
Okay.
before we started, but it doesn't.
No, I got it, but let's not get too distracted on showing, and this is my opinion, and John and I disagree here. I think it's important to know what the impact is on tax increases on apartment complexes and what we could figure it out, condos and homes that are rented. And then we could step back and say, is this okay, is this not? But the RTE is totally ineffective in terms of renters and their, do we have other programs?
Yeah,
The question.
I think in terms of answering whether the RTE is effective in achieving its objectives, it's critical to include 26% of the population who are
If you
renters
want
in
to
that answer.
promote economic diversity,
Exactly.
which was the goal of the
Exactly,
selectmen.
exactly. So you can't,
No.
renters are, particularly given that they're a poor population of Concord. I think they represent roughly 40% of the people that we're trying to target. So they're a core component. We cannot
No.
ignore them. And I'm not saying you ignore them, but, and I don't believe that the select board knew before they put this in place, the magnitude of the impact of the RTE on renters, which is why I think it's critical that we highlight this. Anyways, if you go,
All right, everyone.
Can I just,
All right, for a minute.
we've gotta come up with a word other than qualifying.
yeah,
Because what's not in this bullet point, and is a substantial number, I don't know how big it is, of people who qualified but didn't apply.
Yeah.
that's what we were talking about earlier, yeah.
And, and I'm having trouble thinking it through, but what would it mean? If, say, a third of those who are
Paying for it.
for it are, eligible and they applied.
Well, the problem is the assessor uses that word. They
Yeah.
use.
I know they do, but I think
Yeah.
in our report, we've got to be
Yeah.
very
Just
clear,
to be
because
clear.
it's clear to me that I don't know what the percentage of, this 1.9 million number or whatever is, comes from this, but it's very clear that a lot of the money that's, if you will, subsidizing the RTE is coming from people who would in fact themselves be eligible. for the
Eligible,
Exactly.
qualifying, so it's two differences.
Yeah, right.
You can be
Yeah.
eligible, but you can qualify.
So I would say maybe we should use completely different terms in that, because
Exactly.
eligible and qualifying for a year, I should have thought with the same thing. So
Yeah, it's
something,
not, yeah.
we
exactly.
should use something that says chose not to apply.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And be really clear about that, because I think
Yeah.
it's I don't know how we figure that out, but that's
I don't think we're gonna figure out the size of that. I think we're more, our target of finding out the landlord impact is gonna be more doable.
Do we know from the survey how many people chose not to apply?
I think, yeah,
Yeah,
but it's like 30, fifth, I can't remember the number.
But anyway, we'll
Yeah.
try to pull that
It's
out.
gotta be there, because we asked, did you get it?
Right.
And we know.
And,
what you're-
and we asked, why did you not apply? And a large number was, I didn't think it applied to me, I didn't know how to do it. And also people saying, I just moved in,
yeah,
which
Yeah,
was another
Sure.
comment. So we can like dive down into that. But again, I think as a whole team, anything that comes out of the survey, it would be really good to present it and then discuss it, because the survey is self-reported. And,
Yeah. agreed.
But I think that's an important
Exactly.
slide
Yeah.
worth of information.
So, Ellen, back to slide 6, Ellen and I will work on determining how much of the funding is coming from landlords or coming from landlords. Back to slide 7, we'll talk to landlords to
Yeah.
determine if indeed what they're saying is what we've seen in the market, in other markets. And what this slide just highlights is that if landlords are passing along a substantial portion of the tax increase, it's slide 8, sorry, it's not missing a page number. There we go. Ellen, can you pass?
Oh, I'm
forward?
sorry. Busy making notes. Oh,
8,
One more.
there we
Oops.
go, yeah.
There.
Hey.
Back, there we go,
go.
perfect. So this point is that if landlords pass along a substantial portion of, it's a point that Rich was just making, if landlords pass along a substantial portion of the tax increase to renters, it's negatively impacting exactly the people we're trying to help.
This is a repeat of an earlier. slide,
Exactly, the
right?
data is, the point is not.
And I think the question is, it's the RTE plus. Remember, we were told, I mean, this is what all Lynn's and Rich have been doing. What are the other options?
Yeah.
And so I think it's very clear the RTE is gonna not help renters, it's gonna hurt renters. And so do we have any other options?
Yeah.
And one of the things that we, would love to, so we're gonna be able to get to the other options, the 41.5, it's not all renters, but it's seniors, and it's
Yeah.
It's not all owners, it's just seniors.
It's not all.
It's owners,
I'm sorry, that's what I
Homeowners,
meant, sorry, I'm not being.
it's owners, but only seniors.
Right,
Correct.
and it would take the circuit breaker, we can calculate that because we know how people filed and their income. And if you remove all the assets, then the survey can tell you how many people in town would qualify, so we can make a decent estimate of that.
For 41C1/2.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And so that is, it doesn't help younger renters.
No,
It just,
it
but
does younger homeowners.
I'm sorry, homeowners, but it doesn't, it would be.
It removes the asset constraint, which right now in our senior means tested exemption imposes a limit.
Is it only homeowners? I thought it was everybody.
No, it's homeowners.
Okay, that's a problem. Okay, got it.
The only thing for renters is section or clause 5O, capital O. And
Okay,
we can talk about it again, but that, if you're willing to rent year round at an affordable rate to
Hey,
deserve it
income
to a
tenant.
low income tenant, then you get a property tax break.
and it goes to the landlord.
That's right, because they've already
Cause they,
Yeah,
confirmed through the contract, the rental contract, that they're passing on
Got
a
it.
benefit to
Yeah.
the renter.
you can see slow, yeah.
When you
All right.
talk to your landlords, that's a good conversation.
How many would be?
Yeah, and you should maybe reach out to the business roundtable, the leader, and say, do you have a group of people we could talk to?
Hmm.
Because they're the big property owners.
Mhm, mhm.
Okay,
Okay, and the last slide here, slide 9, just circles back to the questions that we were trying to answer at the beginning and gives a summary of the answers from the prior slides. So 74% of Concord units are homeowners, 26% rentals. 95% of lower income homeowners are benefiting from the RT, so it is pretty effective. More than the majority of homeowners, however, benefiting from the RTE are not lower income, so it's not particularly efficient. RTE qualifying homes above the break even fund about 11% of the RTE, with non-qualifying units funding around 80%. Placeholder 30% is funded by landlords.
Wouldn't that be non-qualifying funding 90%?
no, don't, it's not qualifying. This is survey.
I'm just saying
Never mind, just keep going.
11 and
Yeah, vacant land,
89.
and apartment complexes. That's the other, those are the,
yeah.
that's the gap. And then evidence highlights tax increases and rent increase correlation, given rents are a meaningful portion of our target, this meaningfully impacts the effectiveness.
Okay, so it's like, I think that that's
Market.
the bottom line. Okay, let me just try to, this is John, so let me just try to recalibrate the bottom line, which is it's really, really effective. 95% isn't just, that is wildly effective, but half of the money, half the people are benefiting are not low income. So it's very effective. It's not efficient.
And it's effective with regard to homeowners.
Bingo.
No.
Yes,
I
yes.
mean, honestly, sorry, I'm just gonna go back. This is designed for homeowners. From the very get-go, we got a real problem in that we do not help renters. So if we look at homeowners, it is very effective for benefiting the target homeowner audience.
True.
And it's
Totally
ineffective in terms of,
low income.
it's benefiting people who don't
It's
need it.
inefficient, right?
Homeowners that do not need it. Okay?
Yes, and when we look at answering whether or not we should be, the RT is achieving its objectives, the question is whether it achieves its objectives for the residents of Concord, not for homeowners.
No, I got it. I got it.
So therefore, we have to talk about the effectiveness in homeowners and renters
Okay.
But
together.
that was never the intention of the legislation. The
I-
legislation
So
isn't about residents. The legislation is about people who pay property taxes.
So
Yeah.
when we talk about trying to achieve economic diversity within Concord,
I
Is that-
understand.
Well, you
It should
understand what?
include, it should include everyone, but I'm just saying, the law only focuses on homeowners.
I know, but the result is that it negatively impacts renters. So
So-
if we think about whether the RT is achieving its objectives, you have to look at renters and owners.
So I would.
You're not, you're taking a skewed perspective.
I would suggest what Lynn's saying, that there is two different sections here. One is the legislation, RTE, focused on homeowners. How is it working to help seniors, low-income folks and seniors? And then step back and
And the
say,
bottom line to that is it's effective, but not terribly efficient.
Bingo,
Right.
exactly.
and so then you look at renters and say, okay, we know the RTE is not gonna help renters, it's actually gonna hurt renters.
Mhm.
Now do that analysis and then pull it together.
Exactly.
I
For
think
the
that's-
select board and say, bottom line, we've got a couple of things that can fix, but the 41C1/2, which I didn't realize, is still just homeowners.
Mhm.
And so we are really focused on
You've got
homeowners.
41C1/2 and you've got 5O.
Yeah, and
Those
so
are
I
the
think
two.
that's the conversation. that needs to happen.
right, in terms of other things we could do.
Yeah, right, file.
Or I suppose we could change the rules on the SMTE, the senior means tested exemption,
And
but 41C1/2 is broader because it doesn't have an.
Yeah, it doesn't have an asset test, but it doesn't help anybody under 65.
But it's, neither does the SMTE.
Right,
And so our problem is that we are really, I mean, Wendy, when she presented at the league forum, started out by saying the existing regulations are really focused on seniors. And the RTE was, oh, wow, this is not just seniors, but it is also only
But
homeowners.
let me raise
Right.
this, because I was thinking about this
Yeah.
morning. The reason we focus on seniors is because there is a subset of the population who could afford to live in Concord 50 years ago, 40 years ago.
Exactly.
They're on lower incomes than the wealthier, younger people that have moved in who can afford it now.
Right.
And they're constrained by their limited social security income or their limited pensions.
Mhm.
And I would argue that the income, I think I wrote this in my draft, the income that you can draw from 275K of assets, if you follow
Yeah.
the
yeah.
required minimum distribution is a
Okay.
pittance.
Agreed.
But so that's why you focus on seniors, because their affordability ratio has declined significantly over time. Younger people have to be able to afford the property values and the taxes if they're gonna move into town.
So one,
And if they suddenly come into financial hardship, there are programs that will address that too. People may be reluctant to ask for
but
them,
there is.
but there are a number of programs that will help younger people who are suddenly caught cost constrained.
Mhm.
I don't think the RTE is supposed to try to make Concord more affordable for everybody.
okay, I mean, that's well said, thank you.
I agree with that. Yep.
Yeah, and it's kind of like the Abby was saying this when she was talking about first-time homeowners used to be, I don't know, late thirties and now it's forties. Because it is really hard to
To afford
buy
it,
into
yeah.
Concord unless you're coming from California, you've got huge assets,
Yeah.
Equity. Or you happen to have inherited wealth.
Right.
And so, yeah, we heard a lot of stories and I'm sure Shannon could, if she were on, could articulate in the qualitative, the stories of the seniors, at least I interviewed some folks who said, I can't afford here anymore.
Mhm.
I can't afford because X, Y, Z blank. And I used to be able to afford my house. But now the taxes have gotten out of hand and the cost of living in Concord in general is so high. So I think that maybe one approach we could take in the final report is to look at different cohorts.
Mhm,
And one of them could be seniors who lived in town a long time. The survey could help us.
mhm.
We can get verbatims. And I think that if we can put the human face on this, it'll make it a lot more effective in the presentation to the select board / public.
But I guess one question that I throw out to the group is it the RTE's job to help people under the age of 60 who are housing cost constrained?
I don't know, Wendy, if you got any comments?
I mean,
It goes back to the home ownership. I think it's worth talking to some of the select board members at the time, that the economic diversity was still home ownership. It was the spectrum of there is a relationship between income and housing, but to preserve that diversity of home values in towns and who could retain and stay in their homes. But it really
All right, but
wasn't
that's
about
different.
renters.
That's
Yeah,
different
right.
than the age question that I'm raising.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
I don't
think-
wanna see mansionization in Concord either.
No, but I think when we talk about economic diversity, that might have been part of it, but the age piece, definitely the seniors who were all saying they were leaving because they couldn't afford a tax, that was definitely a lot of the context
Yeah.
behind that recommendation.
So that
Yeah, interesting, yeah.
so that when we looked at that very last question was, are you intending to move out of town? And
That's a big one.
I haven't figured it all out,
Yeah.
but number one and number two were, I can't afford housing costs, I can't afford my taxes.
Yeah.
I would also, I mean, I know we're just digging into this now. I would like to see some age breakdowns, not
Sure,
just
I mean,
income breakdowns.
if, I guess I would ask everybody, including folks online, if you send me questions, I can do some cuts.
Mhm.
Right now, it's like I've boiled the ocean
Yeah.
in this survey. And I really, it's kind of like, okay, so what are the questions left unanswered?
Yeah.
And how can I target specific cuts, but then also look at the verbatims, which I haven't even touched,
Mhm.
besides the last question of why people are moving out. And interestingly, the number 3, and this was primarily people with high incomes above the break even was fiscal management, select board, school committee. And so there's a lot of themes that we could pull out,
Mhm.
Yeah,
I think actually,
right?
yeah, I mean, certainly some of the interviews I did, the opposition to the RTE was a general objection to rapidly rising taxes and what was perceived as financial mismanagement of the town. You know, I mean, how could a school cost that much, et cetera, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Move to
Yeah.
Lexington, see what schools cost.
$600 million, guys, for the new high school. What?
660.
$660. I
When
mean,
you- to your point, and actually as Ellen highlighted it earlier, I think in terms of helping senior homeowners stay in their house. The RT is actually doing that, but it's giving a lot of money to a lot of other people, and there's shrapnel impact on renters. That's the shrapnel.
so I mean, I think that is the question, and we should now drill down to the cohorts, like the seniors, like
Yeah.
Lynn is saying, people who lived in town a long time,
Mm.
and try to see that, because I think it's kind of like, we knew before we began that this was gonna be a problem, because 89% of people below the break even, and we don't have 89% low income.
Right.
We knew that, and renters weren't gonna, we knew there's gonna be really.
Yeah, but
you know,
now we have data.
Exactly. And so please, I'll send a note out, but send me targeted questions.
Okay.
And I can next time, or send out even before next time, some survey results that at least begin to do that, because right now I'm kind of at a loss for where to go in analyzing the
Oh, I
survey.
got lots of ideas.
Yeah, but please send them to me. I'd really love to know that.
Could I also ask that, you know, now that we have this, that we ask Shannon if she can pull some quotes that illustrate, you know, on a personal level, some of the things we're trying to get.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, either from Shannon's
Or from the.
or from
From
the
the-
verbatim.
Yeah.
Verbatim.
And that's what I'm saying.
Just thinking, she may be able to do it by just searching for stuff in the transcripts, that's what I think.
Yeah.
So it gets us two parts. One, send questions, think about questions, send them to me. And then there's two things. I can do the survey. We can ask Shannon, what did you hear in the interview? She's really good at that. And then I can assign verbatims to people. Here's a
Yeah.
cut. Tell me what you're saying.
Mhm.
Because people, you know, that's a simple thing to do. And I think then we get some color around this
Yes,
stuff. And we're not gonna be
absolutely.
focused on data, which I think is a really, you know, can be very blunt.
On its own, it doesn't work. Yeah, you need to have both. I also think what some of the qualitative will help bring out is just the amount of education that's needed around
Oh,
RTE,
absolutely.
right? Because people just don't understand it. Renters are saying, well, I want my rent to go down, so I'm in favor of the RTE.
Exactly. There was one person that I entered that said that, and I thought, you know, and it's like a lot of the, why didn't you apply? I didn't understand it. I didn't know how to. It seemed really complicated. So there's a lot of, like, we had a problem from the get-go.
Mhm.
But I think also just remember that even though that's true, Meredith is saying that she thinks that most people who are gonna apply did. So it's like, we can't make people apply, we can't push on the string. So some people just said, I'm not going to, for whatever reason, that's their choice.
Mhm.
I mean, some people thought they didn't deserve it and therefore
Yes,
they weren't going to
yeah.
apply.
I-
I debated whether to apply for that reason.
I had at least one interview that said that.
Yeah,
We didn't need it.
well, thank you.
Okay.
I mean, these slides are.
This just helps the
Yeah, this is-
conversation.
No, it's
Get
really
going.
helpful to start to
So,
wrap our
what time
head.
do we have now? So,
Nice.
because Lynn, you were the first to kind of prepare your draft, do you want to, I could, display it or whatever?
No, don't display it.
Okay, so let's
We're
have
not
a
gonna-
discussion. We don't share anything right now, just of what you found and what you think were the takeaways.
You know, my key takeaways from the beginning of the write-up, most property tax relief programs target seniors.
Okay.
Or other, specific hardship communities, veterans, the blind, et cetera. Only the RTE offers tax relief more broadly, and we already know that, but I've just stated it here. The eligibility rules for our senior means tested exemption have a very low asset limit. I've indicated in a table in the body of the report or the chapter, the limits that other towns have used, a few of which are higher. But most of them are about like Concord's 250, 275K. The two things that would provide more flexibility, one of which is clause 41C1/2. It's senior targeted. It works off the circuit breakers tax credit, income and, home valuation limits. I wrote here that it would supersede both clause 41C and our senior means tested exemption. I don't think that's true. I think we could have, I've seen other towns in the meantime that have both and let people choose which one is more helpful to them. And then, you know, we talk about renters and the one thing that's available to renters. I did learn in the research I was doing to write this up that there is currently a bill before the State House that would make senior means tested exemptions the law, so that any town could buy into it without having to do a home rule petition. I thought that was
Okay.
interesting. But again, that's still focusing on seniors. So, you know, I try to explain, I remember Kathy saying at a recent meeting, I don't get the senior circuit breaker tax credit, so I tried to lay that out as clearly as I could. I did describe the RTE and I realized that the analysis of the impact of the RTE will come in your section. But I think, you know, as we
Okay.
describe all of them, I have to describe that as well. I also think it's really important for us to wrap our heads around this graph on page 5, where I show the distribution.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, for the distribution.
I
of
think
home
your two
values.
graphs, that one and the one about the rise of the IRA. Not referring to.
I did that in
Northern Ireland.
homage to our discussions, Rich. Yeah, because that asset limit isn't just a pot of money sitting there that you can draw to pay your taxes. It's a pot of money that funds your income in out years,
Yeah.
future years. And 275K is just really small.
Do you know, or is there any way that we can know, I mean, back to your table, it's got like the number of beneficiaries per program, the number of people who get the senior, circuit breaker?
I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
I thought we had asked Meredith to populate that.
Yeah, I still have to email her, but I just wonder
I
if
know
there's,
you asked Shannon McAndrew about the
Yeah,
number
she
of
said it.
people.
yeah, okay, I
That was the Hugh Cargill.
Yeah,
I will
that's
send-
actually
Yeah,
program.
so that's 69
I'm gonna
people.
send Meredith an email about two things that we're lacking. One is the total list of bill to addresses that are different than the residential address. We've got it for non-Concord. I want it for Concord. And I want to know the name so we can pull out LLC,
Mhm.
just a simple text search.
Mhm.
So that plus to
And then
get that,
basically,
get that
yeah,
filled in. Yeah.
if, to what extent does she have numbers
Yes,
for
yeah,
these things?
right.
And I think the town knows how many people apply for the circuit breaker.
I don't know.
I don't know if
Why
It's
not?
it's a state. but
I know
Because it's your
Meredith
state
knows-
tax return.
Yeah, no, I know, but Meredith only knows it when someone has to qualify for something, so she's collecting.
Yeah, right.
information. In general, I don't think she knows.
Another town we
Yeah.
talked to had that figure for us.
Really, who had it?
Sudbury, maybe?
Well, ask her.
Somebody-
It must be, it's not the ones that I've written up to.
I mean,
I'll
I
go back
can also
my
look
notes
to
so
see
I can
whether the
check.
Department of Revenue, they have fabulous data tables.
Oh, that would be
Use them.
great
Let
to
me
know
see
that.
if they know.
Because to know that would, I think, be really, really helpful because the, you know, do also, I mean, the Council on Aging does a really great job, so I would think that they would have pushed people to that. And I know that Meredith talked about in some of our discussions, remember, about telling people, be sure you don't take so many local programs that you don't qualify for the senior means for the circuit breaker, which is the biggest.
Yeah, she helps them figure out if it's not working, to eat.
So she might do that, but does she keep track of the people who get the senior means, or
Yeah.
the circuit breaker?
Yeah, she's got her. I mean.
Okay,
she's got
I
one.
think that's I will,
Let's ask her and
I
then
will
I'll
ask
also look to see if there's anything
And
online.
then you raised a question about whether you thought two programs could be active at the same time. Was
Yeah.
that the 5-0?
No, it was,
Get Meredith.
41.
to update that.
41C1/2 versus 41C for the senior. Hmm?
I'm pretty sure you can only have one.
Okay,
I think, yeah.
I thought I saw a town.
If they did, great, but let's ask Meredith.
Sure. The other question I had that I expressed in the draft is, I believe Nicole told us that you can't apply for more than one. You're counseled to apply for the one that gives you the biggest
That's
benefit.
what Meredith told us too. but
Yeah.
She helped.
should be very careful that you don't disqualify yourself for the circuit breaker. That's
Right.
2,500. That's bigger than anything. Cause the circuit, you know, the RTE is
But
like
a number of
1,800
towns that
max.
have SMTEs, senior means tested exemptions, take that as a given, your circuit breaker, and then give you
Oh.
additional benefit as long as you don't exceed 50%
Yeah, that's
of your
what-
That's
property
what Meredith
tax
was
bill.
saying.
It's the 50% that they
Yeah.
have to watch.
Anyway, I mean,
Yeah.
if you could send me questions for Meredith, just
Okay.
be sure, so I don't like omit them. I wanna send her just one email.
Yep.
Because this is the busy time for her and her staff. So I haven't sent her an email that says, hey, you owe us.
Although our
Because
tax bills did come out,
Okay,
our most
Oh, yes,
recent.
Yeah,
they
it
did.
is.
okay.
So
Um,
then the other question, though, just in the, from the select board, it's very clear the asset limit is too low.
Yeah.
We knew that when we did
Sure.
the charge. Is there anything you can say about other town, I mean, you did actually reference some other towns that are. like-
Yeah,
Yeah.
some of them are,
If it's, that, if maybe there's a strong message in the report that says that that asset limit should be reevaluated.
I mean,
by the assessment
I've been
office.
toying with, do we say something like an asset level of X is required to have a minimum decent income?
Mhm.
Cause you know, in your write-up, your point about what it takes to, they're surviving on that asset.
yeah,
right?
we
I
could
mean,
do
we
the
can-
actual.
it's state-
Social security or another pension that you might
Yeah.
have, I
Yeah.
get that too. So I'd like to dig a little
Yeah,
further.
I mean, if you could, it'd be great. I just not your top priority, but we did ask.
Okay.
Yeah, well, we know that Bedford decided to have no asset limit at all.
Cause they adopted.
Carlisle is over 500,000, as I recall.
Is a half million, half million.
And there was another really. high-
Brookline has 750K.
Brookline
Does
said-
they have a database on that? They can tell you what that limit is?
I only found it by Googling
Yeah.
towns and trying to
I
find
wonder, I wonder if
communities.
Meredith can get that far,
So
Hmm,
what the asset limit is for all the.
Asset limit. for,
All the towns that have a senior needs test.
I can find a database that shows who has a senior means tested
Yeah.
exemption.
Uh,
I don't think it tells me what the asset limits are, but I'll check again.
It's amazing the kind of data the city does have. though.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, and we think you can't get it, and then there's a database someplace that you just have to query.
Yeah.
So that would be really great if we could get some of the stuff.
I mean, it's also clear, I went back to a table I had produced early on, where is it? Of the 20 towns, it was 19 and now it's 20 towns that have the RTE.
Uh-huh,
Mhm.
And I was trying to come up with other numbers that would help tell a story.
yeah,
I show per capita incomes. I mean, the thing about the 20 is that half are on the Cape and Islands and half are mostly right around Boston
Mhm.
towns. Concord is the outlier, unless you think Waltham and Waltham and Watertown are also closer to Boston. So you either have urban, close suburban,
mhm.
or you have Cape Cod and the islands. I don't see a pattern in terms of the per capita income or the tax rates.
Do we have, one of the things that you've said all along is the distribution. I mean, I think there's a metric that,
I
a
would
statistical
love-
metric that, you could, I mean, it's basically, standard deviation, what's outside 2/3.
Because
Kind of
it was
thing.
the Marlboro experience that got me
Yeah.
thinking
Yeah,
about
I
that,
mean-
right? They said their distribution is pretty flat.
Yeah,
And thus their incomes
Yeah.
distribution are pretty flat. And once you have that break even point, the people above it said, wait a minute, we're not that much different than the people below it. Why do we have to pay more?
Mhm.
So
And it's
they-
interesting that the way it's worked out here, we actually look like the Cape and Islands,
Yes,
as we have a very high
except
end.
instead of second,
that's
it's the
paid.
one, exactly.
Yeah.
We treat them,
Oh.
Non-qualifying or paying in both instances, it's just who are the non-qualifying.
exactly. They
Yeah,
happen to be
interesting.
permanent
Yeah.
residents in the
Yeah.
town.
Yeah, except, that's right.
That's a great way of putting it.
Your observation, Lynn, about the high percentage of rentals in Brookline was interesting too. I mean,
Mhm.
that sort of vacation home, second property, but the rental, and we don't know all the rentals, so that's gonna be a challenge for us.
As
Maybe
of
that's
when
it.
we talked to the assessor's office, they were waiting to implement the affordable housing clause, the section
Oh.
5.0.
Yeah.
But they're
Oh.
waiting to see what Boston does. I
Yeah.
wonder if it's worth reaching out to them.
Check Boston again.
Well, I did check, I Googled and I didn't see any
I'll go
news.
back to my
you
contact
could.
with the tenants.
But I was gonna
coalition
say, if
that has-
maybe we should shoot an email to the people we talked to in Brookline to see if they've made any forward progress on that.
The other issue is that all of those towns have big differentials in the commercial versus residential.
Yes.
Oh,
So
okay.
that just like.
Big
They have a
time,
split
Sort of
rate.
says you don't have any.
including Marlboro.
Yeah, well, that's probably why they were in. That's
I mean, there's a lot of stuff. that-
Marlboro, Sudbury, Lexington, Brookline, all have split rates.
Right, right, it's. It makes something very unique,
Is there a reason they're not having the split rate from the select board perspective?
yeah, we don't have any commercial business.
Because we don't, it's not,
We don't
because it
wanna-
would make an impact. Yeah, okay, we
I
think,
mean, we do, we have some, but we don't wanna.
we don't wanna drive out.
Bedford
Right.
also has a split rate, Littleton has a
They
split
all do,
rate.
they have greater.
So all those communities
Yeah.
have large commercial areas. I mean, think of Route 20 in Sudbury.
Is it reasonable to think that if we had a high commercial rate that it would drive business out or
Or with
discourage?
traffic.
Well, we're having a hard time attracting business, so anything that is gonna discourage.
Well,
it.
wasn't
We
it,
don't wanna do that. right?
wasn't
No, I
it
got
in
it.
part because traditional stores were getting, pushed out by rent increases, which, you know, there was a reluctance to increase them further,
I-
other
That's
words,
probably part of it.
changing the character of downtown.
Yeah, we've never had a big base.
Yeah, right, but
But you're right, we
the,
don't wanna add.
the concern was that, you know, if the landlord of your favorite store,
Right,
as John says, passes through the tax increase,
Yeah.
that would be a reason for you to disappear.
yeah, well, that's fair.
You know, I mean, I guess the, you know, the toy stores that last.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Store, there's a lot of stores.
There's a lot of little
Yeah.
businesses, yeah.
Almost every one. of
Good
them.
thing Vanderhoof owns his building.
I mean, that was the reason that the West Concord Superette didn't sell for a long time, is that the Mandrios owned that building and then they sold it to, finally to, you
The
know,
restaurants.
The
yeah.
restaurant.
Woods Hill. But they owned it, and I remember talking to them a lot, and they said, well, we're insulated. And they actually sold when I think the health department required them to have seating to do lunches was what kind of a last straw. Plus, the kids did not want to be in retail.
Right.
They were smart. So it's like, I think rental increases driving out small business is a problem.
So if you have other comments or questions on the draft, by all means, send them to
Yeah,
me. I'll
thank you.
continue to work on it.
Thank you.
I want to read it once more, but I read it last night and I would not change it very much. I think it's exactly what we should have.
All
Okay.
right. You're obviously still working on the
Yeah,
write-ups
but
from the
it-
different
I want
towns.
people to at least see
Yeah,
the way it's structured.
Yeah.
and The top line, and then my goal is to condense each of the interviews into half to 3/4 of a page of significant notes. And, you know, and then that would be it, it would be about 10 pages.
That's
Okay.
nice.
all right.
I'll put in about a page trying to, you know, summarize the Lexington survey, since it's
Oh,
the
that would be
the
good.
biggest survey.
I
Yeah,
mean, that's, our analysis is based on what we saw, that Lexington did, because it seemed very.
I think in some ways, ours is, what you already have is better than what they did.
I have a-
do you
Well-
think, I think what we're finding, it'll be good to go back to the Lexington survey.
Yeah.
Because I'm
Right.
curious how consistent our data set is, right?
With what they
With
should.
what they had,
Oh,
right?
interesting.
It'll be interesting to see what.
Well, they
composition
have-
think. Yeah.
I
I
just,
don't think they had, I mean, I don't remember, but I think it was like 75% and maybe, I don't think it was half was high income, but they had the same comment. It's effective and not efficient. I mean, that is kind of what we heard from Lexington, and when we were looking at it, I thought, well, that's a really simple, intuitive, easy to understand analysis. Maybe that's the, you know, so I'm really grateful, to be honest, that we had Lexington
sure, sure.
to begin with.
I remember one of their takeaways was that housing cost constraints affect middle-aged households
exactly.
significantly. And, you know, that's the other reason why the RTE is actually helpful.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
also speculated a lot on the implications of RTE.
Oh, yeah, I mean, there's stuff in there that's straight out of
Right,
a seminar at Harvard about
yeah,
whether the price of the house will increase to offset the reduction in
a
the,
lot of that.
yeah.
I mean, I think that Abby's not online, but her analysis, I think, is gonna be crucial because she's got a real world view of, at least for the sweet spot, which is way, you know, kind of, I think, what is it, 2.5 million, or 1.5 to 2.5. And she was saying, people don't ask about taxes, that's about tax rate. but they talk about what do they qualify for and what is the overall burden for mortgage and et cetera. So the RTE is a rounding error is kind of the
Mhm.
indication I got from her.
Yeah.
But I've been saying this for a
Oh.
long time. When your colleague on the select board says Concord has the third, it's now the fifth,
Gross, yeah,
it's now the fifth highest average tax bill.
Yeah.
That's very misleading, again, because of that distribution that I show, right?
It's the, I don't care if somebody's paying a really high tax rate. I care about what tax bill. I care about what my tax rate is for the house that I'm about to buy.
And if if I'm looking at a $1.5 million house, buying it in Acton is gonna cost me a lot more than
Yeah.
buying it
And we
here.
should, but I think we should emphasize that, because I think it was actually in the Concord Bridge too.
Yeah.
They kind of reinforced that bad notion.
As
Well,
I think
I don't
about-
think it's different lenses, it's different ways of looking at it,
It
really.
is.
But
It's not a bad notion, it's a different way of looking at it,
Okay.
rate versus dollars.
But it's reflecting what Lynn said at the beginning, the distribution is skewed to high end. So from a personal point of view, you might want to take, what is the tax bill for the, two standard deviations, not omitting others.
Well, I started building a table where I said, if I'm gonna buy a $1.5 million
Oh,
house,
good, okay.
what's the annual property tax bill in a bunch of reference towns, including
Oh,
Concord?
okay, that's a good
So
idea.
I think part of my dilemma as I think about pulling this whole thing together is how much context and reference tables do we put in and narrative around that versus getting right to the survey results and digging into what Concord people are telling us. And I don't know,
Well, you're gonna have the context information that you're talking about is gonna be reinforced by the survey results.
I mean, yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it's what do you lead with?
yeah,
I mean, John and I talked about, we could do a summary of, okay, the numbers,
Mhm.
the finance, and, we're close to being able to do that. And then I think it's the context is really, really important, because I think that your point of, what is the impact on seniors who've been here a long time? I think we need to, my view, you kind of do the numbers and then and maybe the
Tease it apart.
existing, the other regulations, because those are also kind of a dumb. And then look at who are the targets, seniors who've lived here a long time, renters, and just pull it out and say, okay, now we want to talk about people we care about in Concord. Right?
Careful there.
Yeah, exactly.
We are not the seniors.
Yeah, no.
Say that very well, didn't I?
No, you
Then-
did not.
Then we want to talk about the specific cohorts that we're interested in, and it's pursuing more
Yeah,
care about. I think there is a certain kind of like, the select board, when they were looking at this, they did have a certain target, if you want to call it care about, or you want to talk, focus on, and I don't, yeah.
we should see if there are
Okay,
any
so
public comments.
I think
or-
we're at the point where if there are public comments, please, unmute and share.
Liaison comments?
Liaison comments?
No, you guys are doing a phenomenal job, just digging into details and
Yeah.
having a tough conversation, so keep going, it's really good.
Okay, anything more? We might be able to stop our meeting early. Isn't
Wow.
that great?
I look forward to, well, we haven't talked about Shannon's, but she should be here in order for us to.
Yes.
And I think this is just a beginning, what she.
She said
pulled
she was,
together.
she'd begun it, and I think Abby also said that, she's beginning to think about it, and I think that, they can be woven in as we go along.
So Kathy had spoken to me offline and said how busy she is this time of year and she feels bad that she's not
It's okay.
responsible for a particular chapter, but I think Kathy's a really good writer and a really clear thinker.
Yes.
I had suggested to her that either an opening section that kind of lays out the whole dilemma,
Oh, okay.
research question might be something, and then also, obviously, as we start to pull insights together, someone needs to write a concluding section to the report
Mhm.
or an executive summary of the
yeah, no, I
report.
think we've gotta have the 3-pager or 5-pager.
Yeah.
Can Ellen and I take a cut on the 3-pager?
Well, we can do it based on the survey stuff, and
Yeah.
I think we can do a summary of what have we heard in terms of the numbers of surveys and anything we can pull out. in
Yeah,
data.
and then
So,
other people can learn.
The assessor,
But
but I,
do that, because I think each section maybe should have a little key
Yeah.
takeaway.
and I like the idea of Kathy, hello Kathy, willing to do it to have a lay out the problem.
Yeah.
I think that that's something that will really help. Um. Create the context of why are we here? What are we trying to do? What did the select board ask us and why? And it would make it, I mean, if we laid out. The first thing that a resident saw was numbers and charts, I think we wouldn't, we won't, yeah, right, exactly. It's like you don't lead with that. You lead with what is the problem statement? Why are we here? Why was this important? Why has it generated so much interest?
And how did we start
And how
to
did we
unpack it?
scope? How did we scope it? And then what are the sections that you're gonna read?
Yeah.
And then you can have, we can figure out how.
And
to
that
do
can
executive
best be
summary.
written maybe, well, one can certainly start to draft it now, but as these pieces come out, then we can have Kathy start to.
But
put
that's
that
an
together.
excellent idea.
Kathy, we're talking about you as if
What do
you're
you
not
think?
here,
And
and
Kathy,
obviously you are.
and Kathy also fully can appreciate that you get busy, so,
Yeah.
we can
Yeah.
push it. Don't worry about it. Don't feel bad.
Yeah, I actually already started it, but I'm in no place to.
That would be
you know,
great.
circulate it, so.
Yeah, I think that having something that is an overarching statement will help to focus and get beyond the people grabbing onto one section and making that the summary.
Mhm.
It is much bigger than the survey, than the regulations. It's a really complex problem.
And if each of us does that key takeaways
Yeah.
page or two, then that can feed into an
Yeah.
executive summary.
Right.
So
Any
your
other
next meeting is February 5th, right? At
Yeah.
night?
at night?
Yes.
Tonight's meeting. Okay, any other comments? All right, then I say that at
Motion to adjourn.
motion to adjourn at 9:50.